All right. For decades, pretty much the entire world has operated on one basic assumption about China. Its nonstop, laser-focused chase of a hard GDP growth target. Well, you can take that assumption and throw it out the window. It's officially a thing of the past. So let's dive into what is, no exaggeration, one of the biggest economic strategy shifts we're likely to see in our lifetime.
And boom, here it is, the main event right up front. For the first time in, well, forever, Beijing is intentionally dropping its famous rigid GDP growth targets. So instead of chasing a specific number like 7%, the new mantra is all about keeping growth within a reasonable range that they can adjust every year. Now, this is not just some small policy change. This is a complete rewrite of China's entire economic philosophy. But that begs the question, why? Why make such a massive change right now?
Well, it turns out this move isn't a sign of weakness, and it's definitely not a retreat. No, this is the first move in a much longer and more ambitious game. The real target, the date they have circled on the calendar, is the year 2049. That's the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. And this timeline really lays out the whole roadmap. See, they already checked a major box in 2021 when they achieved what they call a moderately prosperous society. So the next big 5-year plan, which kicks off in 2026, is basically the launch pad for the next phase, the goal for 2035, to double the wealth of the average person. And the ultimate destination, the big one in 2049, is to become a socialist, modernized, strong nation. This is the grand vision that is driving every single decision they're making today.
Okay, so if the government isn't chasing that one big GDP number anymore, what's the new scoreboard? How do they measure success? Well, it's a huge pivot from just pure quantity, raw industrial output, to something that's much more about quality of life for the average citizen and the overall health of the economy.
And this slide says it all. The new priority is something called the per capita mandate. So the main goal isn't just about the total size of the economic pie anymore. It's about the size of the slice that each individual person gets. By trying to double per capita GDP, the entire focus shifts to things like household wealth, making the economy more efficient, and building something more sustainable for the long run.
All right, so if that's the new philosophy, where are they actually putting their resources and their political muscle? The 15th five-year plan gives us the exact hierarchy of what they're focused on. And believe me, the order of this list is incredibly revealing.
The order of this list is literally everything. Number 1, at the very top, is high-quality economic development. Now that's basically code for becoming technologically self-reliant and driving innovation. Only after that, at number 2, do we see strengthening domestic circulation, which is about getting their own people to buy more stuff. Then that's followed by promoting common prosperity, better jobs, higher pay. The most crucial thing to see here is that building technological independence is now, officially, China's #1 priority.
And make no mistake, this order is not an accident. It is a very deliberate signal. By putting tech independence even above boosting their own massive consumer market, Beijing is telling the world that technological reform is the key to everything else. To their economic security, to their national strength, this is the absolute core of their entire strategy.
And this isn't just talk. They are putting their money where their mouth is with some really aggressive targets. Just look at the push into the digital economy. The goal is to crank up its share of GDP from 10% all the way to 12.5%. Now, that might not sound like a huge number, but for an economy of China's size, that represents a massive fire hose of cash being aimed at everything digital.
And along with that digital push, you've got this number, 7%. That is the locked-in, non-negotiable target for how much they're going to grow their R&D spending every single year. So while that big GDP target is now flexible, the commitment to funding innovation is rock solid. This is where the money's headed.
Okay, so China's turning inward, focusing on its own high-tech, high-quality growth. You might be thinking, why does this matter to me? Well, it matters a lot. This internal pivot is creating 3 huge, irreversible ripple effects for businesses, investors, and supply chains all over the world. First takeaway, an era is over. The days of treating China as just the world's factory are done. Now, if you're a global company that wants to sell to China's enormous market, you have to play by new rules. It's an in-China, for-China world. That means localizing your R&D, your supply chains, even your data. Basically, building a self-contained Chinese version of your company is the new price of admission.
The second takeaway is for anyone with an eye on investments. That 12.5% digital target, think of it as a giant flashing signpost pointing to where the state is funneling unbelievable amounts of money. We're talking about domestic champions in semiconductors, AI, quantum computing, and green tech. This creates a massive tailwind for Chinese companies in these fields, and frankly, intense state-backed competition for anyone else trying to play on their turf.
And finally, this plan confirms what a lot of people have been suspecting. The great decoupling of global supply chains? It's not a temporary fad. It's a permanent reality. China is actively preparing for a world with two parallel ecosystems. So for any global manufacturer, the China Plus One strategy, diversifying to places like Vietnam, India, or Mexico, is no longer just a good idea. It's an absolute necessity.
Which brings us to our final big question. What we're watching is a truly seismic shift. China is literally transforming its economic identity right before our eyes, evolving from the world's factory into a self-contained, tech-powered nation. And so the real question for every other business and every other government is, how are you going to adapt to this new reality?